A man wrote to me recently and he makes over 200K a year, big house, nice cars, kids in good schools. From the outside, he's a success. But he dreads going home. His wife is cold and resentful. His kids don't respect him. There's no intimacy, no laughter, just low grade tension and occasional explosions. He told me, well, I feel like I've done my part. I provided. Why is my marriage miserable? So today I want to walk you through his story as a case study because I know a lot of you are living some version of this. So we'll look at what he was missing in charity and justice, how his success at work was masking failure at home, and the concrete steps he took to turn things around. So if you're a high earning man with a home you don't actually enjoy being in, this might be the most important video you watch this month. So we'll call him Daniel, successful outside, collapsing inside. Late 30s, 4 kids under 12. Household income around 200, 220K-ish. Practicing Catholic, Sunday Mass, kids in Catholic school. From the outside, he's the guy other men envy. But here's what he told me. His wife feels like a single mum. She says he's emotionally absent, always on his phone or laptop. She's gained weight. She's often snappy and withdrawn. And they haven't had real intimacy in months. The kids roll their eyes at him, and his oldest openly defies him. So he feels disrespected, unappreciated, and quietly thinks, after everything I provide, this is the thanks I get. So he came to me asking how to get his wife to respect him again. And before you assume his wife is just ungrateful, ask yourself honestly, if your wife wrote to me anonymously, describing you as a husband and father, would her story sound much different? Because when we dug into Daniel's situation, the problem wasn't just a difficult wife. It was a man who had poured all his strength into work and almost none into the vocation that will actually matter at his judgment. So if you've seen my 5 Dragons deep dive on my Be Her Leader main channel, you'll recognize this list. In Daniel's case, all 5 were alive. Dragon number 1, emotional disconnection. He worked long hours, came home tired, ate, scrolled, maybe watched something and went to bed. Conversations with his wife were 90% logistics, schedules, bills, kids. If she raised deeper concerns, he problem solved for about 30 seconds and then shut it down with a sigh. She told me privately she felt unseen, unheard, and stupid for having feelings. So from a moral theology standpoint, there's a failure in charity. He's not loving his wife as one flesh, and also a failure in justice. He's not giving her the friendship and attention due to a spouse. Now, dragon number 2 is solo parenting and household chaos. He saw himself as the provider, full stop. His wife was homeschooling, part-time, juggling activities, appointments, housework. There was no clear discipline plan. When kids misbehaved, she looked to him. He stayed on the sofa. She described herself as mentally fried, constantly on edge. So the Catechism of Trent is very clear that the husband's authority is given for the common good of the family. That includes household order, discipline, and shielding his wife from chronic overload where he can. Now, Daniel had underused his strength where it was hardest, at home. Dragon 3 was resentment, blocking intimacy. Because he'd been emotionally absent and inconsistent with discipline, his wife had built up years of hurt. So he in turn resented her. Weight gain, lack of enthusiasm and intimacy, nagging about his phone and work. He saw intimacy as something he was owed. She experienced it as vulnerability to a man who wasn't really with her. And Callan and McHugh, the moral theologians, teach that the marital debt is real. Spouses owe each other their bodies, but not in a way that ignores the other's reasonable needs and dignity. So a wife can request a delay for serious cause. A man who has been unjust, drunk, or emotionally cruel has no business demanding tender intimacy that night. Daniel was demanding his rights while neglecting many of his duties. Now, Dragon 4 is about misused or absent headship. He liked the idea of being head of the home. In practice, he did one of two things. Either issued last-minute unilateral decisions about trips, purchases, plans without consulting her at all, or avoided hard decisions altogether, leaving his wife to carry the emotional and logistical weight. And Cassidy Kanubi condemns both extremes: tyranny that treats a wife as a child or servant, and also an abdication where the man refuses to really govern. St. Philip Neri's line again: he who wishes to be perfectly obeyed should give but few orders. Daniel gave many orders and carried few crosses. Dragon 5, Overwhelm, Burnout, and Screens. His wife, exhausted, leaned on screens for the kids. He came home and complained about it while keeping his own phone on him constantly. Bedtime was chaos. Meals were chaotic. There were no real routines. He had energy for doom scrolling and work emails, but no energy for the hard work of setting structure. Again, a failure in justice and a misdirection of strength. So the turning point came when he stopped asking, how do I get my wife to change? And started asking, how have I failed in charity and justice? And what does God actually ask of me as a husband? And there were three big shifts. Shift number 1, confession and ownership. He made a general confession for the last few years of marriage. He named neglect of prayer, neglect of his wife's emotional needs, neglect of fatherly discipline, unjust anger, and ways he treated intimacy as an entitlement, instrumentalizing his wife's body for his own pleasure. This wasn't about scrupulosity. It was about finally calling sin what it is. Scopoli would say he stopped trusting his own excuses and threw himself on God's mercy. Shift number 2 was reordering his time and attention. He cut his evening phone use to almost zero. He set a hard home start time where his laptop closed, his phone was docked, and his focus went to his wife and kids. He took leadership on bedtimes, family rosary a couple of times a week, and also a simple discipline plan for the kids. He didn't become a perfect monk. He became a present father. His wife told him through tears one night, I finally feel like I'm not alone in this house. And then shift number 3 was gentle leadership with fewer words. Daniel stopped lecturing. He took St. Philip Neri's maxim seriously. He who wishes to be perfectly obeyed should give but few orders. So instead of barking instructions, he sat down with his wife to plan money and routines. He backed her up calmly in front of the kids. He apologized when he got it wrong, and he made decisions where they needed to be made without drama and without endless debates. Over 6 months, here's what changed. His wife's tone softened. She initiated affection again. The kids started to respond to his authority. The house didn't become perfect, but it became livable and often warm. So did she also have work to do? Yes, but her heart only really opened after he started using his strength at home. at least as seriously as he used it for his career. So if you're a high-earning husband with a miserable home, I want you to hear this clearly. Money does not buy you a dispensation from your duties in charity and justice. The Catechism of Trent, Aquinas, and the whole tradition agree. You owe your wife honor, friendship, and leadership. You owe your children discipline, example, and presence. You owe God worship, prayer, and obedience. If you pour yourself out for your employer and give your family scraps, you are failing at the level that will matter most when you die. That's not me blaming men for everything. It's simply taking your vocation seriously. So the good news is that most of the misery in your home is not fate. It's the fruit of habits and omissions that can be repented of and changed with grace and hard work. As the leader, you led the way into it. You can lead the way out. So here's what to do next week. 3 concrete steps. First, confession. Go to it. Be specific. Name neglect of duty as husband and father, not just generic sins. Second, pick one daily change at home. For example, put your phone in a drawer at 6 p.m. or lead bedtime and prayer every night. Something small but consistent. And then third, have a calm conversation with your wife. Just one. No blame. Something like, I've been convicted that I haven't been the husband and father I should be. I'm going to start changing X and Y. It will take time, but I want you to know that I'm serious, and you're going to see that through my actions. Now, don't promise the moon. Show her over weeks with actions. She's heard enough empty promises. She's going to respond to new patterns of behavior. Now, men like Daniel are very common in our patriarchy.com coaching community. High earners who are serious about the faith, but with homes on fire. They've been sold the lie that the measure of a man's masculinity is his salary. And inside, we help you diagnose where you've failed in charity and justice, build real plans for discipline, prayer, and order at home, and get other men around you who won't let you retreat into comfort and excuses. So if you recognize yourself in Daniel's story, don't stay there for another year. Go to patriarchy.com/start and start your free trial. There's a link in the description. Now, some homework before you go. In the comments, answer this. Which part of Daniel's story sounded uncomfortably close to yours? And then tell me one small action you will take at home this week. Remember, your income is not the measure of your manhood. Your fidelity in your vocation is. So let's get that right.